Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit of a chat about some things that I have learned through my first real year of homeschooling. This is more of just like I said, just kind of like general thoughts here. And I'm quite sure there's going to be a couple of these that you guys have heard, or you've heard, people talk about similar things or whatever. But I hope that maybe I can offer a little bit of a different train of thought or opinion, maybe kind of get you thinking a little differently. So the first thing, obviously, that I have learned is everyone has an opinion. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. But if it's a surprise to you, surprise, people have opinions. Every one of them. Every single person has an opinion. Some of those we just bless and release, right? We move along, say thank you, and we just don't pay any mind to it. Some of them we appreciate and we consider what that person has presented to us. Maybe we learn something new. Maybe we say, hey, I've never thought of that before, and we try it. Everyone has an opinion, but I think that it's very imperative that we continue to use discernment and we continue to hold our boundaries and stick to what we know to be true of ourselves, of our family, of our house, all of those things. And we just navigate through those opinions accordingly. The second thing that I have learned through homeschooling, and this is really just, I feel like parenting in general, but definitely when you are homeschooling, I feel that it is one of the most sanctifying processes. There is no greater way to figure out all of the things that are wrong with you and your sins and all of that stuff than to have a little mini version of yourself. And while you are working with them on, certain character traits or things like that, and you're like, man, she sounds just like me, and that's terrible, And so it's like, well, I guess I need to figure that out. But it's true. And we have such an opportunity with our children to grow and learn with them. But as I have mentioned in a couple of other videos, like in the young formative years, like if you are new here, sorry, there is a crow right outside my window, and he just keeps going up and down and up and down, and it's distracting me. What was I saying? Oh, yes. So my daughter will be 6 in like a month or so. And yes, it's important that we work on math and reading and all the things. But school, to me, is more than just what happens inside of a book. And so I have learned that while I am working on those character traits with my daughter, I'm really kind of working on them with myself, because I can't ask her to behave a certain way or not behave a certain way if I am not also modeling the type of behavior that I would like to see. I'm not saying I'm a perfect parent. Nobody is a perfect parent, but that's part of the process, right? Is when you realize I lost my temper and I, yelled when I shouldn't have. Okay, well, that's fine. It's not fine, but that is what it is. So now what do we do with it? And I think that's the follow-up that's important with our children, is like, hey, I'm not perfect. I made a mistake here. I sinned here, ask for forgiveness. And then this is how we're going to fix it. Because in the same way, when my daughter loses her temper and she yells or throws herself on the floor or whatever, I know how I have handled that situation in the past, and so I can kind of reference that. And I then have some experience on how to handle that, or how to teach her to handle that, or say, hey, this is what I do in this situation. This is what you can try to do. And yeah, it's a process. Next to homeschooling is marriage. I think marriage is also one of the most sanctifying processes because y'all, that's a whole nother video. We're not even getting into all that, but y'all know what I'm saying. I don't know how well this will be received. I'm hoping that my heart comes through here and you guys can really understand what I'm saying here, and I'm hoping that I can articulate well. That is not one of my strong suits. If you guys have watched any of my videos, anyways, so I feel that homeschooling can become an idol, and we can put it up on a pedestal and say this is the most important thing, and we have a ton of really good biblical reasons as to maybe why we have it on this pedestal. But at the end of the day, it's still a temporary thing of this world. Is there things that happen during homeschool that can get us a closer relationship with the Lord? Absolutely. I was just talking about how it's such a sanctifying process. But when we put it up above other things, that's a spot where it doesn't belong. When we're putting it above our relationship with the Lord, if we're putting it above our relationship with our family and the people we love and loving others and all of those things, when we hold it to such a high account, it's not where it's supposed to be. I'm not saying that it's not important. Obviously, I homeschool, and I want to homeschool for as long as I possibly can. But I also have realized that, again, it's still just a temporary thing of this world. The goal at the end of the day for me as a mom, as a Christian mom, is to get my daughter to heaven. Everything else is temporary. And yes, that's a big statement. I'm not saying like we're, don't worry about getting a job ever, or, none of that kind of stuff. But there's just a place where those things belong. And I think when we start putting homeschooling up and we're like, oh, look at this big, great, shiny thing, and look at what I've done, and look at all these things I created here. And like, that's not really where that goes. Right. Third thing that I have learned is you're going to have hard days. But hard does not equal bad. Hard is just hard. There are still things that can be learned during hard days, which kind of goes back to sanctification and character development and processing emotion and how to handle certain situations and things like that. So yeah, and hard for people look differently. Some people, a hard day is something that is very, very hard, and maybe it lasts for weeks. Maybe it's something that's a little bit more intense, or, really kind of changes your things in your life and your surroundings. I'm talking like big life-changing type things. And then some days it's a hard day because we're just not in a great mood today. It's just one of those days where you wake up and just things aren't going right and everybody's just in a bad mood, and you know what I'm saying. But yeah, the point is that hard days are just hard. They're not necessarily bad. And there are still things that can be learned through those, and that is one of the joys in homeschooling. And I know it's kind of weird to say that a hard day is joyful, but it can be, because you have the opportunity to walk through those hard things with your children. Whether it's you having the hard day because something happened, whether it's your children having a hard day, whether it's your family that's having a hard week or hard month, whatever that looks like, the joy in that is that you get to walk alongside your children with that. You get to help them navigate. They get to help you navigate. And you really learn how to work together as a family unit, and you kind of balance each other out. And kind of the last thing that I will touch on here is consistency. However, I think there has to be a balance. I have noticed that there seems to be like one of two extremes. Either we are really, really consistent, and I say we as in like homeschooling community in general. Either we're really consistent and everything is, nailed down to a schedule and times and, very on track. Or it's like we don't have anything that's consistent because we are just jumping around all over the place. Taking into consideration different family dynamics and situations and all of that stuff, obviously you're going to have some variety there, but I think it's important to have a little bit of both. I think it's important to have certain expectations for kind of your daily in and out, but allowing room for flexibility. At least that's what I have learned for myself. We have got to have a rhythm. I don't have it scheduled that at 7:30 we have to eat breakfast, and if it's 7:35 and we're not eating breakfast, then I'm getting flustered and anxious and stressed. But I do know that within 10-15 minutes of my daughter waking up, we're going to be eating breakfast at whatever time that falls into. And then after breakfast, we're generally going to get dressed. Some days that's like 5 minutes because she's just, ready to go and there's no problem. Sometimes it's like 35 minutes for us to get dressed. But the point is that there's an expectation there. And that's what I have learned for myself is I have got to give myself a little bit of leeway, because if I were to say at 8 o'clock we need to be starting school, then if we're not in the classroom sitting down at 7:50, I'm starting to get anxious and I'm starting to get stressed because we're not on time and we got to get going. If we don't get going right now, then that's going to put this behind and we can't be behind on that. And that was extremely stressful. So just to flow in a rhythm, and I've learned to just kind of go with it. And some days I will have the day planned where we're going to do this in the morning and we're going to do this kind of in the afternoon, then we'll take a break for lunch and we'll, move on to the next thing. Some days that works and some days it doesn't. Some days I just wake up and I'm like, I don't even know what I was thinking. There's no way we're going to get through with all of those things. And so just do the best I can and we just move on. And yeah, so those are just a couple of things that I have learned through my first year of homeschooling. Hopefully that kind of gives you guys some thoughts and ideas, something to just kind of ponder on. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you soon.